And now that we have it taken apart, we're going to take this screw out, which will take this guy out. I'm going to put it back together really quick because it's just going to pop this one part out, and then it will be a completely manual knife. Check out what we have here. Brian Winters, and look at when it is coming. Dropping on October 23rd, which, hey, that's not too far away. Couple things about this knife. One, it has Vanex steel with DLC coating. Vanex is one of the, if not the best pocket knife steel you can put on a knife. It is one, it has the highest amount of corrosion resistance. It's the highest corrosion resistance steel we have for a super steel with the highest amount of edge retention. It's like an 8 out of 10 edge retention. There are some charts that show it lower than that, but that's what it really is. It's like a 7.5 to 8.5 in edge retention. And then the toughness is like a 5 out of 10. So it's got great toughness, great edge retention, and great corrosion resistance. One of the most well-rounded steels, if not the most well-rounded steel on the planet. Then we have a titanium show side with this paint color over it, and then a carbon fiber side on this side. Now, this thing is able to be changed into a fully manual knife. You can take out the magnets and make it just a regular manual knife, which we are going to do later on in this video. This is another fascinating knife from Brian Winters. This is an automatic knife that you can close manually and operate manually. Now, this isn't the double action one that we've seen in my blade show video that's absolutely mind-blowing, but this is something unique all on its own and is still high up there on the mind-blowing abilities because it has still because it has just so you know, it's using magnets. It's using magnets for the deployment for the assist, and then it has I believe this is a magnetic lock. Yeah, it's also a magnetic lock. So all you got to do is when you close it, you just got to overcome those magnets. And it's a timing thing, but you wind up getting it down pretty quickly. Like, it took me like 5 seconds to get it down at Blade Show. And I can even do it left-handed. Come on, guys. But the auto is much stronger than I had, or the assist, I should say. I don't know if you, I guess you can consider this an auto, because the other one that I had, that I do have, that one had an assist, but it wasn't strong. Like, if you had it straight up and down, it wasn't going to engage and lock. It was more of one where you had to give it a little bit of wrist or, you know, or flick it. This one actually has power behind it. So when you close it, you do have to be a little bit more intuitive than with that other one. But hey, very cool. I like the Stormtrooper edition. Stormtrooper edition or Stormtrooper colors. I'm not a Star Wars guy or anything like that, honestly. And I know a lot of people are probably screaming and pulling out their hair right now. I don't even know much about Star Wars, just to be honest with you. But I do know that this is called Stormtrooper colors because of the black and white. You can see a magnet right there. Look at that. See? There's one of the magnets right there. I haven't even taken this thing apart to see how it works. But you can see we have a beautiful sheep's foot blade. Nice and thin behind the edge. Plunge grind. I wish it was back here more like some of his other models. He did give you something to sharpen off. You have from here to sharpen off. So that is quite a bit of steel, but I want more. I like more. That's just me, you know, so not a big deal. It's not a deal breaker or anything like that. It's not that big of a deal. But you can see that is quite a plunge. So when you do hit it, you're gonna hit it. So after you sharpen up to there, it will absolutely create a big smile. Just is what it is. That's why you want to keep those plunge grinds back. I know not all knife designers and knife makers understand that quite as well as I do, being a sharpener. But when you sharpen, what happens is this area right here, you will hit it and it will carve into it, and it just looks ugly. So with such a beautiful knife, you don't want it looking ugly. TA hardware all the way around. Beautiful cut of carbon fiber, by the way. Nice It's nicely done. No voids or anything like that. The texture is really nice. Chamfers are done very well. Everything matches up really good. Love the CTA hardware. This is a reversible clip, obviously, which is always cool to see. The button, it pops out pretty good, and it does have a little bit of texture on it. So when you pull it down, you do feel like it has, you know, a little bit of texture to it so that it's not going to be slippery in your hand. This side is a little slippery with this paint on it. I'm not sure what the paint is, but it's some sort of coating, paint, whatever. I like it though, because there's still grippiness there. So while it is slippery, because of the paint like covering any type of texturing or anything, it feels good in the hand. It feels really good in the hand. And you know, it's fairly ergonomic. It's not the most ergonomic because of this dip right there, but I can get my 2 fingers in there, 1 finger here, 1 finger there. I could definitely bear down on it just fine in just about any grip. No problem. Hole access, very easy to get to. The resistance, you can see how it does have resistance pulling it back in, but once you get to here, it flies open. So it's like from there to here, you have resistance, but then once you break that, it flies open. So it does have a very snappy deploying action. And again, very unique, very different, just like Brian Winters always does. Looks like all the magnets are up here. That's weird. So how? This, I think, is the magnet creating the resistance for the blade, I think. Let me quickly take it apart and let's look at the inside of it. We've taken entirely way too long. Okay, so we have it taken apart here. This is a magnet, and you can see the magnet's attached to here, and it's screwed in right there, making it to where it could be interchanged, cleaned, whatever. Next thing is this lock is actually on a spring tension, this down here, and magnetic. So it has a little bit of both, which is really, really cool. I think that's awesome. Now, this magnet resists this magnet. So when you put them next to each other, they're resisting each other. But this magnet is very strong to the steel, but to the magnet, it resists it. So when this is locked open, you can see this is creating the lock, and the lock is basically putting pressure on the magnet and this back spring, which theoretically is going to be super solid because this is constantly engaging up. So that's going to prevent it from having any play, any slack, anything with movement in the blade, which is really, really cool. I'd love to see that. Now, I know if you hung some weight from it, it's not going to be able to hold like, you know, an extreme amount, probably, you know, a decent amount, definitely enough to where it's going to be perfectly acceptable for tough use. But if you replaced these scales with all titanium scales and had these barrels be heavy duty, very tough steel barrels with nice thick screws, this thing potentially has the ability to be very, very strong. Now, magnets, I know they can crush. I know they can shatter. So I think that would be the first thing that would give is the magnet would shatter or whatever. But I have to imagine that there is also a way to do that where there's a preventive measure there. So this has the potential to be an extremely, extremely strong lock. But just all in all, for basic EDC, this is a very tough lock and a very nice way to create a locking mechanism. Now, like I said, the magnets are resisting each other right now. So what you do is when you close it, you're basically breaking through that resistance until this falls into this groove right there. Now, shit. There we go. Because this falls in between here. So now this groove right here, it's pushing down on the magnet. So when you pull this down, it lets it free. That's one thing. Or two, when you push it like this with your finger, you know, kicking it out, this part right here is pushing down on the magnet, pushing it out of the way, getting out of the way. And once it gets right here, the resistance from the magnets takes over and now it pushes it all the way out. So, and then obviously when it opens all the way up, the spring and the magnet both engage this up into behind the blade, or, you know, into the tang of the blade. And now that we have it taken apart, we're going to take this screw out, which will take this guy out. I'm going to put it back together really quick because it's just going to pop this one part out, and then it will be a completely manual knife just driven by the tension of this spring and this magnet right there. So after taking out It's such a strong magnet, guys. After taking out this magnet right there that goes in that little slot, now we have a fully manual knife. And it is 100% fully manual. The detent is a light detent now because of, you know, it just being the tension right here. And it, you know, it is what it is. It's not that big of a deal. It feels very similar to like a crossbar lock. So, you know, however you know, think of a crossbar lock, it's basically the resistance you get, which I think I prefer it with the magnet. And I prefer, just so we're clear, I prefer manual knives over any type of auto or any type of assist every day of the week. But I like the strength of the detent with the magnet on this one. If it had the factors magnets down here creating a detent, then I might actually prefer it just like this. But as far as the way it stands, I like it both ways, but definitely with the magnet for me personally. You know, everybody's going to be different. That was actually pretty easy to take out this guy right here and make it just a manual operating knife, you know, basically similar to a crossbar lock. Obviously, it's not a crossbar lock. It is very different from a crossbar lock, but a little bit of the same concept, kind of, as far as, you know, the functionality. Now, that being said, that's an awesome feature to be able to change a knife from manual, or sorry, from automatic, slightly manual to fully manual, because it is still manual even with the magnetic spring or whatever you want to call it. Anyways, very cool concept. And like I said, it's very easy. The one thing is that when you're taking parts off, they will stick to that magnet like that. Like you take a screw out, as soon as you go to separate parts, it goes right to it. But you get pretty used to it. It's pretty easy to not let that happen. You know, it might happen a couple times, but it's not going to be a big deal. One thing that's you always got to put into consideration is the steel removal. When you sharpen it, the steel removal will put particles, or like if you work in an environment with a lot of steel particles where there can be attracted to magnets, your knife could get gummed up or get, you know, that problem. Now, I tested a knife a while back. I think it was the Factor, and I tested it in all different ways. I sharpened it many times. I was laying it around my sharpening bench, which I had tons of steel shavings. Yeah, it did accumulate a little bit, but it was very easy to clean off. You just take a piece of tape and dab the magnet with a piece of tape, and it cleans it off pretty easily. So I don't think it's that big of a deal or anything to worry about. And I think the people that make a big deal out of it, you know, maybe if you work in certain industries, it might be a big deal to you, but you know, you know, as long as you're not working that day or in that industry, then, you know, and this might not even be the style knife that you might want to carry for whatever reason for a job like that. But for most people, it's not going to be a big deal at all. So, all in all, with the WINTERBLADES MFIRE, this thing's badass. As far as negatives goes and nitpicks, you know, we talked about the plunge grind. You know, that is one thing. Other than that, I mean, this thing is beautifully done, beautifully executed. The OEM, I believe, is Best Tech, and they're doing a really good job. They've done a good job with all of his models. I currently have some work being done by Best Tech, and they are a really cool company to work with. Like, they are very easy to talk to, easy to deal with. They do their best to do exactly what you want, how you want, and make sure of it. So, you know, now that I'm working with them, you know, for a knife design, I can tell that they are one of the better OEMs out there. You do get a little bit of a different perspective when dealing with different companies and stuff, because some of them, you know, they give you kickback, pushback, to, you know, they always have it doesn't matter. The point is, they're really good. And as far as nitpicks and negatives, I don't have a lot here. The clip works well. The action's amazing. Everything from Brian Winters is unique and different. So, you know, it's not something you can really compare to a lot of other things. So, that's kind of unique too, just dropping it down and closing it. Anyways, so since it's not something you can really compare to other things, you have to compare the little details, the hardware, the clip, how does it work? You know, is it centered? Is there play? No play at all. Rock solid lockup. And to my knowledge, this is a very strong lock. I have yet to have any play with any of my magnetic locks. They're all rock solid. I'm not saying it's impossible or anything like that, but it seems like it might be a good way to make a locking mechanism where the magnet's constantly engaging it more and more. Yeah, this thing has rapid deployment, man. Yeah, there you guys go. I freaking dig it. I freaking love it. I freaking love just about everything from Brian Winters. And anybody who gets one in hand, they realize very quickly that nobody was trying to hype them up or anything like that. They do that themselves. When you get it in hand, you realize like, oh my goodness, like this thing, you don't even have to try to hype this thing up. This thing's hyped up just by itself. Anyways, there you guys go. If you guys like this type of content, I will put some cards up on the screen for you to click on. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace.